Hello, my name is Junior.
Hi, my name is Maelliss.
And I'm Gracie.
And I'm Abbey, and we are presenting chapters 7 and 8 from Good to Great by Jim Collins. Chapter 7 is Technology Accelerators and explains how technology affects companies and how they should use it. So, what happened in the market when the internet and new technologies were introduced? Everyone was fascinated by the internet in the early 2000s, so if a company somehow associated itself with the internet, people fanatically bought as many stocks as they could. Businesses were claiming that they had something to do with the internet and because of that were becoming rich, even if they could offer no profits or prove that they were a legit company with a plan. The motto was, new technology could change everything. This is shown in the Walgreens versus Drugstore.com war. Drugstore.com was one of the first internet pharmacies, and after only 4 weeks of their stocks being on the market, they had a market valuation of over $3.5 billion. They had less than 500 employees, had sold products for less than 9 months, and had no hope of investor dividends for decades, which means they had no real credibility. People were saying that Walgreens was behind the curve and needed to catch up to Drugstore.com, but they waited and formed a plan to launch a website and ended up doubling their stock within a year. Walgreens bought Drugstore.com and shut it down. With technology, companies needed a strong hedgehog concept. A hedgehog concept is an understanding of what you can be the best at. In order to be a good to great company, you need to be able to have a strong understanding of what you as a company are good at and what your values are so you can change and adapt to new things happening around you. Technology does not make a company great. It is how a company uses that technology to accelerate their agenda forward to create a brand that is strong and successful. Which technology a company wants to pioneer needs to be carefully selected and coincide with their hedgehog concept. Treat technology like the gas pedal on your car. You need to use it in order to accelerate and move at quicker, more efficient speeds. Without your gas pedal, it would be very hard to get anywhere. Technology is a tool, an accelerator, to help a company get to where it needs to go, but it is not the engine or the foundation that makes the company work. Also, technology can be used to transform every part of a business for the better. By using the hedgehog concept, a company will be able to tell what technology is relevant in order to accelerate the company forward. A good example of this is Amazon. Amazon is a very well-known company, and they utilize technology to improve their operations. They use drones to deliver packages in as little as a few hours, and also are the only company that has managed to achieve lasting success with an online grocery shopping business model. Amazon has created the Amazon Fire TV, which competes with products like Apple TV and Roku and has been very successful. Overall, Amazon is a great example of how to use technology that fits your company and helps it be great. It is also important that you do not fall into the technology trap. Remember that technology can be amazing for a business, but it is not the most important factor. When good to great executives were interviewed, 80% of them did not mention technology as one of their factors in transition. If a company does not have a strong concept and set of values, then implementing new technologies will do nothing. The foundation of a company should not be based around technology, and good to great executives understand that. Technology can trap you, just like that evil robot.
Another issue that can come in with technology is when companies act on the fear of being left behind. This is the main reason that technology got its own chapter in this book, is because good to great companies did not act on fear. They focused on their strengths. They were able to keep working as they had been before the new technologies came out and then slowly implement them as they began to understand them. Whereas comparison companies realized that the world was moving on and was afraid that they would get left in the dust. And so they made rash decisions that did not result in company success. And I feel like this all kind of ties back to what we've talked about in class about leadership. It's important to remember that, the one thing that we know about leadership is that it's important to be confident. If you're confident in your company and you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses and you're able to focus on your strengths despite your weaknesses, you're going to do a lot better than maybe some of the other companies. And it's also important to remember that technology is just an accelerator and that it is not going to make a bad company great or a good company great. It just helps to get it moving along a little faster. So now we're going to talk about chapter 8, the flywheel and the doom loop, and I want to start out by talking about momentum. So when you're moving a group of livestock, these are goats, you need to work right at the edge of their flight zone. So if you get too close, they'll just run away from you randomly. If you're not close enough, then they won't move. And you have to be aware of where that flight zone is and work it little by little. It's important to go slow, um, and just to work, to work with them, to be calm and patient and consistent so that you can, move them into the other pasture or whatever you're trying to do with them. So, talking about the build-up and breakthrough theory, it's important to do the little things to start, building up, start getting your momentum up, and then eventually you'll reach that breakthrough. And there's not necessarily a specific way to gauge when that breakthrough will be, but it is never going to happen if you don't have momentum. All of the good to great companies that were interviewed mentioned that there was no miracle moment. There's no big event that made it so, their company made that transition from good to great. It was the little things. It was the everyday things. It was, coming into work every day and working on, getting a little bit better that day, which makes it so that it's not always apparent internally that, you're making the transition from good to great. But it's important to just, be confident and keep doing what you're supposed to be doing so that you can help the company along. It's also important to note that it's not just a luxury of circumstance. Even companies that were on the verge of bankruptcy or repossession or anything like that were still able to, make the transition from good to great because they were able to build up that momentum. They didn't use constraints as an excuse for losing momentum or for failing to build momentum. They were able to just, keep working on the little things, focus on accumulating results little by little, and just, getting there eventually. Patience and discipline are very important when you're following this model because, it takes time. When you have a piggy bank, when you're little, you don't suddenly have $100 in there. You have to, add coin by coin, dollar by dollar. It's the little things over time that eventually build up to your breakthrough. Another thing that's important is under promising and over delivering. If I'm the owner of a company and I tell Wall Street that we're expecting our stock to increase by about 15%, but then we are actually expecting it to increase by 25%, then when our stock does increase by 15% or perhaps 20%, then we look a lot better than we would if we were under delivering.
Let's think about a big and heavy wheel that we are trying to rotate as fast and as long as possible. With the first push, it will probably move a little bit and at a low speed, but if we keep pushing it many times and consistently in the same direction, it will start to build up some speed, and at some point it will spin on its own because of the multiple pushes we have done. It's the flywheel effect. And so companies compare the business strategies with a massive wheel. They build an habit, a routine, some actions that make the company grow. And the same way the speed has been built up in the flywheel to make it turn, the same way decisions, actions have been taken to make the company grow. And step by step, action by action, decision by decisions, businesses put in a lot of effort to accomplish improvement. And by the end, we can notice visible results because of the repeated actions and the consistent efforts. And now let's move and talk about the doom loop. So the doom loop effect is the opposite of the flywheel effect. So a company can be in the doom loop effect or can use the flywheel effect. And in the doom loop effect, there is no build up, there is no accumulated momentum. That's like a big difference with the flywheel effect. And people, they make continually new efforts. They implement new ideas each time, not like in the flywheel effect, which is most like a process that we continue each time. And they have good ideas, but sometimes the process is really bad, and this led to um, disappointing results. About the misguided use of acquisition. First of all, um, an acquisition is when one company purchases most of all or all of another's company's shares to gain control of that company. So a big acquisition could be a way to increase growth, but it's not something that will create the greatness. And it's a great accelerator of the momentum, but it's not a creator of momentum.
I'm talking about leaders who stop the flywheel. Uh, in this part, talks about the new interval leaders who stop a loop of lack of production and throw it in another new direction. It's like the people who had the idea for the business for a company, the idea and the purpose has to be the same till the end of the company. When you start or you try to change it, then you are going to change the direction of the company. In this part, they gave us an example about the Aris Corporation, who had to use the great to good concept in early 1960, and while George Divley and successor affirmed that uh, Aris Corporation was the base in the technology printing, and while the new director came, he had to change what the first had as an idea, and at the end we saw that the Aris Corporation had to fail in their business. And we have the flower as weapon idea. In this part we have two words that came. It's about the current and the consistency. Current is about the ideas that people bring into the company. The ideas has to be the same uh from the one and the end, the last idea. And consistency, it's about people who work in the company. They have to be very strong and be workful in the company. And we have each system gives power to another. Each department of the company has to give power to another so that the work will be done correctly. And we have how to tell if you're on the flower or in the doom loop. We have leaders that are less interested in flashy programs. And there's an example that is given in the book. It talks about getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people on the right seat. It's crucial step in the build up, and it's important to push on the flower. So we have to have people who want really to work so that the job is going to be done correctly. And the people working has to be disciplined. That's why they talk about hedge hook concept. It's about the behavior that people have to have in a company. And there's also uh the thing that they talked about in the book. It's about being successful. They say that being successful is not uh changing the purpose of the company, but it's like pushing the same purpose so that you can reach your goal. And the challenge will be being too great to enduring great. Thank you.
In conclusion, technology alone is not a root cause of either greatness or mediocrity. It's important to remember to start out crawling before you start to walk and run, even during technology booms. Good to great transitions may appear dramatic and sudden, but they're actually just the result of natural, continuous company processes. Great companies follow the build-up and breakthrough model, whereas comparison companies get stuck in the doom loop. Acquisitions are effective in accelerating momentum but not creating it. And finally, consistency and patience are key to building momentum and making that switch from good to great.